between I snagged her hair versus I pounded on her till she has hearing loss. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
I try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
In 5, 4.
I am not giving up on you.
Go, Dr. Phil.
Researching today's show, we found a Facebook account belonging to my guest Peggy's dog. The dog named Princess Satori posted the following, quote, I tried to friend Jen, but apparently I'm blocked. Who blocks a dog? Close quotes. Then Peggy, the dog's owner, commented as herself with 2 simple words, a bitch. So who is Peggy talking about? Well, she's actually talking about her own daughter, Jen. Peggy says she hasn't spoken to Jen in 7 years. She says she has no idea why, not a clue. She says the last time they spoke was when they got into a disagreement on the phone. Peggy says she can't even remember what the fight was about. Take a look.
My daughter Jennifer has refused to talk to me for 7 years. She says I hung up on her and that's why she hasn't talked to me. What happened was we were on the phone and there was a disagreement for something, I don't know what, and I said, whatever, bye, and I hung up. Now my daughter won't talk to me. In the past 7 years, I think I've reached out to her. I feel like I might have called and left some messages on her phone that weren't returned, but I can't say that for sure. I've seen Jennifer maybe 3 or 4 times. When I see Jennifer at family gatherings, it is awkward, and usually we don't speak. I feel intimidated by her. I feel resentment toward Jennifer. I think my granddaughter Kaylee's been influenced by what Jen said, and I don't know my grandson. He's 7 years old, and this has been going on for 7 years. I don't think I deserve this kind of treatment. I think Jennifer's being selfish and childish. Maybe she doesn't want me in her life anymore. Not having Jennifer in my life, I would feel sad and hurt and lonely. She's the only one of my 3 children that are within driving distance, and I have no other family here, so I'm all alone. It's not my place to go to Jennifer. She should come apologize to me.
Okay, now, I'm a parent. I have 2 children, you have 3. And my first reaction is when I looked at it was as a parent, I can't imagine not speaking to either of my children for 7 years, and I certainly can't imagine not speaking to one of them for 7 years and having no clue as to why. You have to help me understand that. How can you not know what the problem is?
She hasn't given me a reason. The reason she said was because I hung up on her.
You hang up on her, so okay, 7 years, you are exiled for 7 years because you hung up on her?
Right. I think she just wanted to be angry, and that was the excuse that she had.
So you're puzzled.
Yes.
You want this puzzle solved.
I want it to stop.
Because, listen, there are lots of families out there. There are lots of parents with adult children who have issues, and they're watching this saying, okay, I got a pad out. I want to figure out what's he going to tell her, because I've got issues. I want to know, how do we close the gap here? How do we solve these issues? So have you tried? Have you done? I mean, you're the parent here. Parents never quit parenting. I don't care how old your kids get. If you're 70 and they're 50, you're 80, they're 60, whatever, you always are the parent, but you think you are owed the apology.
If not an apology, at least an explanation. I
She's
need
caused
to
you
know why.
pain. Well, you said you want an apology because she's caused you pain.
Right.
She should apologize for the pain she's caused you. She's cut you off. You have a grandson that's a mystery, right?
I really don't even know him. He's 7 years old, and
Wow.
this has been going on for 7 years.
And you're just on the outside looking in.
Yes.
With no clue.
Yes, sir.
Well, Peggy's daughter, Jen, is here. Now, they've not talked in 7 years. And she is ready to talk to her mother. After 7 years of silence, it's going to happen right here today. Take a look.
I stopped talking to my mom 7 years ago, and it was the best decision I've ever made. The reason I cut my mom off was because when my son was 8 days old, she called me and was upset because I had not informed her that my sister was coming to town to meet my son. I was annoyed by her anger towards me, and she hung up on me. The next day, she wrote me an email asking me if I was mad at her for something, and so I responded. I sat down and I wrote her what I call the 30 years of anger letter that outlined everything that I had been upset about in my childhood up until that point, and then I asked her to please respect me and not contact me. When I hit send, I was petrified. Then I felt relieved. My mom did not respond to my letter. My mom's lack of respect is what ultimately caused me to cut off my relationship with her. My mother is not a mother to me, she's just a person. I don't love my mom. If I never talked to my mom again, I would be okay with that.
Well, Jen is here, as I said, so Jen, come on out. Jen, Dr. Phil, how are you?
Good, how are you?
If you would, climb up. That's a climb. You've not spoken to your mother in 7 years.
Correct.
I've been talking to her for just a few minutes. We've just met. She's told us before today and reiterated to me today that she feels like and is here because you owe her an apology.
I don't owe you an apology. You owe me an apology.
For what?
Really. You owe me an apology for neglecting me, for not being a mother, robbing me of my childhood.
When did I neglect you?
Well, she said, wait, we catch up here because I'm a little behind the curve. Because in talking to your mother, she says you guys were talking on the phone 7 years ago.
Correct.
She doesn't even remember what the disagreement was about, and that somebody hung up on somebody else. Who hung up on who? Did you hang up?
She says I hung up on her.
You say she hung up on you.
Yeah.
And that because of that, that this whole thing has come tumbling down. You haven't spoken to her in 7 years because she hung up on you, and there's no, and she has no clue of any problem other than the fact she hung up on you that day.
Yeah, I think she's in denial. 31 years of denial. You hung up on me that day, and that was the last time I wanted to talk to you because I had 31 years of anger.
Well, if there's more to that, then why did Jen cut her mom off? She says that, you know, I got 31 years of reasons to stop talking to my mother. We're going to find out what those are after the break.
Sometimes when I'm getting ready in the morning, I look in the mirror and I see my mom. I see her eyes. I see the shape of her face. I feel disappointed because I know she's just an ugly person on the inside, which makes her ugly on the outside, and I don't want to be that person. I am afraid that I might be that person someday. I do not forgive my mom. My mom has never apologized in a way that I feel was genuine. I know that forgiveness is for me and not for my mom, but I don't know how to do that without saying it's okay.
My ultimate goal is to forgive Jennifer for the pain she's caused me. I can't remember that I've had an opportunity to apologize to Jen. I'm not sure I'd want to apologize to her, actually. Maybe because I feel like she owes me an apology. Well,
Peggy and her daughter haven't spoken to each other in 7 years. Peggy says other family members have told her that Jen stopped speaking to her because of the past, but Peggy says that's just ridiculous. She says she loved her kids and was a good mom. Jen, however, has a very different opinion of how all of that took place. Take a look at this.
My mom was the worst mom. My childhood was pretty horrible. My mom had me when she was 16. I lived with my grandma for the first 3 years of my life. When I lived with my mom, I was miserable. I did not like her, and I hated my life there. My mom was physically abusive. She would hit us, kick us, punch us. When I was about 10, she grabbed me by my hair and started punching me on my neck repeatedly with both fists. Everything went black, and I was dizzy, and because of that incident, I have lifelong lasting effects. I have migraines almost daily. I have a bad back. I also have injuries consistent with whiplash, and I've also had some hearing loss in my right ear. My mom was also emotionally and mentally abusive. She made me feel really horrible as a person. She would tell me that I made her hate me, that I'm ugly. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel like I could do anything right. I just felt like I was a burden. When I was 11, my mom told me that she was going to put me in foster care, so I just decided to run away. I took a taxi to where I caught a Greyhound bus and got a ride to San Francisco. When I arrived in San Francisco, I called my dad and stepmom and asked them to come pick me up, and they did. Growing up, I got the brunt of the abuse until I moved out, and then it moved on to my sister. I don't think my mom knows what real love is. She says the words, "I love you." I don't think she even knows what that means. I didn't ask to be born to her. I didn't have a choice. My mom never should have been a mom.
Well, it sounds like a lot more going on than just hanging up on her.
Where did this foster home stuff come from? That is ridiculous.
No, you're ridiculous. And your denial is ridiculous.
You said you were hit to the point that you have hearing loss.
I do.
Is that true?
I remember
Did you beat this child?
No. I remember pulling her hair. She turned to run away. I grabbed her hair and pulled her back.
Now, there's a hell of a big difference between she was turning and I snagged her hair versus I pounded on her till she has hearing loss. If she's lying, then you need to say so. But if she's not, you need to own that. I don't know. You can go talk to a therapist for a year and you can get to this point, or I can just tell you now. And I'm just telling you now, you're either going to own this or this thing's going to fall apart. So your choice. I wasn't there. I don't know. The floor is yours.
I don't think she's lying. I don't think you're lying. I just don't think it's accurate.
You abused me. You can start by acknowledging that.
Did you beat this child?
I didn't beat her. I don't believe I beat her. I don't. If the things she say happened, I do not remember that.
Is it possible that you weren't present at the time because you were in an altered state of consciousness?
You mean like I was so angry I kind of blacked out?
Take a look at this.
My mom put her men and her drugs ahead of the kids. There was never a time where the boyfriends and the drugs did not take a priority. Between the ages of 9 to 14, my mom had so many boyfriends. I would say probably about 10 to 15. It was a revolving door, and I thought she was a slut. My mom is a drug addict. From a very young age, I've been aware that my mom was a drug user. I knew it from probably as young as 4. In my earlier years, I believe my mom was only smoking pot, but my mom started doing meth in my early teenage years. I knew exactly where the meth was, in my mom's bedroom. My mom was also selling drugs. There was one time when she asked me to come to her house for the weekend to help her do her errands because she had had knee surgery and couldn't drive. And I didn't realize at the time, but looking back, what happened was we went and picked up drugs, and then we dropped off the drugs. She wasn't able to fool me, even though she thought she was. Since I have not talked to my mom in 7 years, I cannot say for sure that she is still using, but I've heard that my mom is abusing her prescription drugs and drinking. So when she says she's a recovered addict, she is not.
That's what I mean.
I did
Were you
drugs.
high? Were you in an altered state of consciousness? Do you not know? Is it possible that you're not lying or in denial? Is it possible that you may have been high at the time?
It's a possibility.
And that doesn't mean that we're ridiculous because you don't remember.
I said what you said was ridiculous. I didn't say you're ridiculous.
You know, this is why we don't have a relationship. You wanted answers? This is why.
What? Because I don't agree with you?
No, because of the way you talk to me, lack of respect, and because you're a mean person. And until you can acknowledge what you've done, I'm not moving forward with you. I'm not.
Well, Mom may not remember too much, but we do have another witness from the past who is here today. We're talking about Jen's sister, Becky. We're going to add her to the conversation when we come back, and maybe we can piece this puzzle together. We'll be right back.
There have always been relationship issues in our family. I myself didn't speak to my mom for about 5 years.
My mom is an amazing liar. One time, when I was about 8 years old, I remember being woken up by some sounds. I pulled the curtain back to see my mom outside. She was wearing a hot pink sweatshirt, and she was taking off the screen off of her bedroom window. And I went back to sleep because I was not concerned. A short while later, my mom came in and woke my sister and I up and told us that somebody had broken into the house and raped her and that we needed to go to the police station. I asked her, why were you outside taking your screen off the window? And she said, I wasn't outside taking my screen off the window, but I know that she was outside. Another time, she said that she was carjacked and that she fought off both carjackers by doing karate chops on one and the other one ran away. I don't believe anything that she says.
Well, Peggy wrote to the show twice asking for help with her estranged daughter, Jen. Jen says she's had so much anger built up that after 30-plus years of abuse and drama, that she just had to cut her mother off. Peggy's younger daughter, Becky, says she's been able to let go of the past, and she wants her sister to do the same. Take a look at what she has to say.
It's been so long since Jen and my mom have spoken that it's just normal. I'm not losing any sleep over this. There have always been relationship issues in our family. I myself didn't speak to my mom for about 5 years. I moved out of the house when I was about 16 years old and didn't talk to her again until I was about 21. Our relationship was really strained at that time. I know that she was using drugs. It definitely wasn't the only thing that happened at that time. It was a hard time for everybody living in the house. It was just a hard time. I've definitely forgiven my mom for how our childhood went. Jen needs to learn to let things go so she can also move forward and not live so much in the past.
Is Jen remembering this correctly? Was there abuse in this home during these years?
There was abuse, yes.
Okay, were you in fact abused?
I was abused at times.
And you remember being abusive with Becky, correct?
I do. Started as discipline, and I do think that with Rebecca, or Becky, it crossed the line.
So Becky here, who actually is on the side of wanting to put this behind and move on, is confirming what your other daughter is saying. I'm just curious what you say about that, because when we started out, it was just you and I here. It's like, I don't know. We were on the phone, and 7 years later, she's not talking to me, and who knows? Thin-skinned, I guess.
Well, Dr. Phil, I admit there was drug usage, and I regret it, and I wish I could change it, and I can't. After Jennifer grew up, she came back to live with me when she had her oldest daughter. They came to live with me, and everything was okay then. So I don't understand why after she grew up and everything was okay, and then all of a sudden it's not okay. Why is that?
I did come back and live with you for a few months. I was hoping that we could have an adult relationship.
And we did.
No, we did not. When Haley and I lived there, you were still the same person you were when I moved out. You weren't physically abusing me anymore, but you were still manipulating, you were mean, you were not loving to Haley. It was really awful. Do you remember sending me IMs when I was at work saying, why is it that the pots and pans can end up in the sink, but they can't get back into the drawer? When all I had done was done you a favor and did the dishes that were in the sink and I left them out to dry. Or when I had lit incense earlier in the day and you came down and woke me up in the middle of the night yelling at me about it. Okay? These are just small examples of the kind of person that you are. Haley and I did not live with you for very long because you had not changed.
You didn't live with me for very long because you got your job and you got on your feet and you got an apartment.
We were not happy.
I'm sorry you weren't happy.
So why did you just tell Dr. Phil that we were living there and everything was fine? It was not fine.
The way I remember it, it was fine.
Right, because you're in denial. This is my reality. That's yours.
I can't be in denial of something that I don't remember.
Did you make a false claim about the house being broken into and you being raped?
No.
She was outside taking the screen off of her bedroom window.
There was somebody in the house. I went out the window.
Were you naked?
It was in the middle of the night. I didn't have time to get dressed.
Did you make a false rape claim?
No.
Did you make a false claim about the house being broken into and you being raped?
No.
I think she did make a false rape claim. She was outside taking the screen off of her bedroom window.
No, I wasn't. I stuck my head out the window and looked out there, but the screen was already off.
No, you were outside. You were outside and you were wearing your hot pink sweatshirt. I will never forget it. I asked you about it that day.
I was wearing that sweatshirt, yes.
Did you claim the house was broken into a second time and you had to climb on the roof to escape the neighbor?
Oh, I got up in the middle of the night. There was somebody in the house. I went out the window on the second floor onto the roof and tried to climb down the tree, and the tree broke and I broke my foot.
Were you naked?
I had a t-shirt on. But it was in the middle of the night. I didn't have time to get dressed before I went out.
Did you claim you were carjacked?
Yes.
Were you?
Yes. We all know that.
No, we don't all know that.
You weren't there.
I know. How do these many things happen to one person in their lifetime?
That was the karate chop. I was not there. I'm not saying you were or were not. I'm asking about these things because I'm looking at a pattern of things that she's talking about with regard to manipulative and kind of attention-seeking behavior, because it's her belief that you have faked rape claims and carjackings and that you've left voicemails about eating moldy food from a store to try to get money when you didn't actually do that.
What? Oh my God.
Tell me about this. Can I ask?
This was in '06 that you left a voicemail saying you ate moldy tortillas and wanted to file a complaint against the store, and that you actually asked for your granddaughter's social security number. And
The tortillas were moldy. Haley and I believe Haley ate them with me, correctly? Correct?
That's what you said.
Yeah. Haley was at my house. We ate some tortillas, and then I found mold on it. I took them to the store, and they replaced them.
No. She told me on my voicemail, I told them that Haley and I got sick, but we didn't really. But that's what happens when you tell a white lie. Those were her words on my voicemail.
I don't remember it.
You just said that's something you did.
I said it sounds like something that I did, yes. And I'll accept that. I'll take responsibility for that.
I've been looking at Twitter that's been rolling up while we've been talking about this. Jordana 951 says, if you want your daughters to get over the past, then give them a way to close those doors and open new healthy ones. At Pretty Unlimited says, sometimes people don't admit and apologize. They'd rather save face than save their relationships. At Feral Woman says, sometimes people have moms that shouldn't have children. I did. You have to learn to fold them and move on. Well, we'll talk about that when we come back. Up next, Jen's daughter Haley says her grandma sent her 27 text messages in 2.5 weeks, but she never responded. We're going to find out why. Is this her choice? Is her mother programming her? Is she getting caught in a tug-of-war here with extended family, which is not good? We'll talk about that after the break.
I have not spoken to my grandmother in about 3 years. If I could say anything to my grandmother, I would just ask her to get help.
Closed captioning provided by...
There's only one egg that just tastes better, with more vitamins and 25% less saturated fat. Only Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Till earlier today, Peggy and her daughter Jen hadn't spoken to each other in 7 years. Jen says her mother is a manipulator, a liar, and after 31 years of chaos, Jen says, well, she says she's just had enough. Peggy says since her daughter cut her off, she's been alienated from her family, including her granddaughter, Haley. Now, Haley says it was her choice to stop talking to her grandmother and says she really doesn't miss her. Take a look.
I have not spoken to my grandmother in about 3 years. It was my decision to stop talking to her. I do not feel like I'm missing out on a relationship with my grandmother because even when she was in my life, we never had a strong bond. My mom and I have talked about what has happened to her as a child. It makes me very sad how my grandmother treated my mom growing up. If I could say anything to my grandmother, it would be that I do love her. I will always love her because she's my grandmother, but I would just ask her to get help so we could work on having a relationship together.
Well, Haley, thank you for joining us. You wanted to be part of this conversation, and I respected that and wanted you to be here. You haven't talked to your grandmother in quite some time.
Yes.
But she's here now. Is there anything you want to say to your granddaughter?
I love you so much. What do you want me to do?
I just want you to stop lying. I want you to admit to the things that you've done.
I don't have a problem admitting the things I've done. I know but there's never been a problem between us.
But there has been.
Like what? What's the problem?
I have memories from when I was 4 and I was living in your house, and on Christmas Day, you took my new presents away from me without any explanation whatsoever. I wasn't doing anything wrong, and you just left me there crying.
We were trying to watch a movie, and you kept walking in front of us. The adults couldn't see the movie, and I told you repeatedly to stop.
This is the first time that you've been with Haley in how long?
Thanksgiving of 2012.
And your first strategy is to start having an argument with her about who was right when she was 4.
Well,
and I'm just curious about what your goal is. You're barking at her, and then we bring out Haley, and you start barking at her, and and I understand that you're under some attack here because she's saying that, you know, you beat her about the head and shoulders, and so she can't hear and see, and she has headaches, and that you ran drugs out of the house and men in the house, and she felt neglected and hurt, and she's not over that and has an open wound, and that you won't acknowledge it, and that hurts her, that you won't own it. And her sister says, come on, get over it. And she said, I can't. How do you get over it when she won't even own it? She won't acknowledge it.
Dr. Phil, I agree that I was not a very good mom. I accept that. I have apologized for it. I can't change it. I can only change how I am now. I can't go back and change the past.
But you're not changing how you are now. You are being very prickly.
Am I?
Yes.
How do I be different then? How can I change it?
You take the chip off your shoulder and you recognize that when this child was in a position that she couldn't speak up, you bullied and abused her. And now she's in a position that she can speak up, you are combative with her. Coming up, I'm going to tell Peggy what I do think needs to happen if this family is ever going to heal. We'll be right back.
I was definitely scared of my mom growing up, and I am still afraid of her today. I actually had a nightmare last night that she killed me after the show.
I think you have some very legitimate complaints here. I do. I think you have some very legitimate complaints. I think your mother made some really poor choices as a parent at the time. I give her huge credit for being here. I'm not saying it means you run and jump in her arms. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying this. Family is very, very important. Extended family is very, very important. And I think what you do is you start taking small steps. I want to help you do that. Now, you two live in different towns, and I'm even going to fix that for you. Everybody knows that Jay and I have developed this Doctor on Demand that we have. We do medical work with that, where you can go to our app and be in front of a board-certified doctor in a matter of minutes. We also do mental health services with that as well. And so you're able to do full-on therapy sessions with the therapist from your home, and you can do them from remote locations together on your smartphone or on your computer or whatever. I've already made arrangements for the two of you because you said you were willing to take a step at a time. So we contacted our clinical psychologist, Dr. Sunita Mehta, and she's actually joining us over the Doctor on Demand site right now. Dr. Mehta, are you there?
Yes, hello. Hi, Dr. Phil.
You've been listening to a lot of this, correct?
I have, yes.
And you see there's a lot of work to do because there is a lot of history here, but we do have two willing spirits here. And I'm really asking if you will work with these two. It'll be up to you whether you do this individual and then together or whatever, but if you will take these two under your very skilled wing and see if we can heal this family and bring them back together, because I truly believe their hearts are in the right place.
Definitely, definitely.
And you're willing to do this, right?
Yes.
You know, it was interesting, at the break, Peggy leaned over and said, is it at all possible for me to take a drug test while I'm here to prove that I am not on drugs and that I am clean and sober? And I said, absolutely, we do that all the time. And I will take her up on that offer, and we will do that immediately on break here, just so you know that she's made a good faith offer here, and we'll move forward, because I want us to actually go forward and do this. Coming up, my next guest says she gets dirty looks whenever she parks in the handicap section, but she says she's legitimately handicapped. We'll find out more about her condition next. My next guest, Pam, has been living with rheumatoid arthritis for more than 15 years. At one point, she was virtually bedridden for 2 years. Yet Pam says people still don't understand how debilitating the condition is. Take a look.
This is not your grandma's bad knee. This is so much more than just arthritis. This is a disease people can't see. So if I park in a disabled parking space, I've had ugly comments. Hey, miss, you're not disabled. You can't park there. And I just want to say, if only you could walk in my body for 10 minutes, it affects my lungs, my kidneys, my joints. I can't be the mom that my kids want or deserve. I can't make plans and say, let's go to the ballpark, let's go on vacation. RA is a living hell.
Well, Pam is here, and also joining us is our really good friend, Dr. Frida Lewis Hall, Chief Medical Officer of Pfizer. So welcome. Appreciate you guys. Doctor, explain to us exactly what rheumatoid arthritis is and its symptoms, because I fear so much, and I know this with some members of my own family, people that sometimes suffer from this and don't know it, and therefore they don't do what they need to do to stop or to treat it.
And it's important to do early diagnosis and early treatment in this disease, because it is a very serious disease, as Pam is telling us. So rheumatoid arthritis, or RA as we call it, is an autoimmune disease. That means our body's defense system essentially attacks normal, healthy tissue like the joints. And this inflammation that's caused by that can actually ultimately lead to joint destruction. It's also not just a joint disease, it's a systemic illness, so it affects other tissues like the heart, the lung, and sometimes the eyes. So, and a lot of people do get this confused with osteoarthritis, which is the most common form of arthritis. You called it, I think, your grandma's bum knee, right? And
not that that's anything to sneeze at.
Not at all, not at all. That too is a very serious disease. Right. It's different though. It is caused by wear and tear over time on the joints, and often affects older people. Remember, RA is systemic, it's autoimmune, and it affects women 3 times more often than it does men. And it's got a wide array of symptoms. The joints tend to be swollen and warm and red and tender to the touch and very painful. Morning stiffness is characteristic and lasts for a very long time. In addition, you can have fever, fatigue, weight loss, and some people get nodules underneath the skin called rheumatoid nodules.
Right. And I think it's important for people to know this, because it's systemic, it does affect these other body parts and systems, so it can be a really life-threatening disease in terms of spreading. And have you had to deal with some of those issues?
Yes, I've gone to the hospital twice since diagnosis with pleurisy, which is affecting the lungs. You know, I have the joint swelling, I have the fatigue especially, and I have rheumatoid nodules in some areas.
Yeah, and I've had this in my family, and I've seen it, and I actually did my doctoral dissertation on the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis way back when we were still chiseling this out on stone tablets and stuff, and there's been huge strides have been made in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis in the last years.
Absolutely, and it is so very important to get an early diagnosis. So if you have any of these symptoms at any age, really urgently get to talk to someone about this. Speak with a rheumatologist, a specialist in this area, because you want to ensure an early diagnosis and a treatment plan that's really designed to be suited to you, because there are a wide range of options. And this is especially important because if you look at what can happen in RA, it is often a progressive disease, and any delays in diagnosis or treatment really increase the risk of longer-term destruction of the joints and disability.
Does this cycle with you? Do you have some times that are better than others for you?
Definitely. You know, I wake up, I'm very stiff in the mornings. It takes sometimes as long as 3 hours to work through that. And then I have to go throughout my day, and at the end of the day, it's just exhausting. It's hard to get through the day.
Yeah, but if you, and I think the key is if people, no matter what their age, if they get to it early, makes a huge difference, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it's so important and I say this to you, and I say it to people, I don't know why people struggle with this so much. If you have a disease, I don't care what it is, and certainly with something like arthritis, it's important to not put up a front, but to be real with family and friends and let them know so they can educate themselves about it. And it's important to understand that there are psychological components to this, because any chronic condition, it can really be frustrating. It can wear you down attitude-wise, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it affects me socially, you know, with friends, with family, and I find myself lying to everybody, yeah, I'm fine, but I'm not. I hide behind the smile.
Yeah, and then it starts to feel very lonely.
Definitely.
Then you start to get depressed. Then you start to feel isolated, and it just starts to snowball, and attitude is